So I was speaking at a meeting this week in front of a number of business owners and consultants, and I was talking about Osage, talking about our 25 years in business, talking about our process. And as the conversation continued on, it was interactive. One question came up that always comes up. Hi, I'm kdee, President of Osage Advisors. Welcome to our podcast, The Ins and Outs of Selling a Business, this week's big hurdle. And so the question that always comes up is, how's the market? What's the market like? And this time I thought about it for a minute because there's been some challenges over the last several years in the marketplace, which has nothing to do with your fundamentals of your company, your business, your profitability. It deals with the environment we're working in right now. As I said many times when I start off the year, about the only thing that could affect us is something geopolitical. So I kind of sat back and I was talking and I said, we soon forget, the past. And if you look back 5-6 years now, we're looking at, 2019, 2020, a couple of the best years we ever had in M&A. I mean, valuations were through the roof. High quality companies were desirable. Interest rates were low. Everything was lining up. And then we get into 2020, that enthusiasm is there. And then what happens? COVID. And COVID is kind of like the start of all these events over the last several years that have kind of had an impact on the M&A environment. We've been fortunate at Osage that our client base in the lower market has been sustained through these turbulent times. But COVID was like the start, right? So everybody pulled back, including us. Couldn't do any deals. But then we came out of COVID, things started to improve. What happened? We had supply chain issues. Everybody had to get back up to speed. So buyers were concerned about, well, can you get inventory? Do you have too much inventory? And it was a no-win situation. And what the market doesn't like is lack of visibility in the future and skepticism about what's happening today and how it affects you tomorrow. I mean, I can't tell you the number of questions we had. How did you do during COVID? How did you pivot during COVID? But we go through COVID and then we got supply chain. And now we're worried about inventory levels. Can we deliver our product on time to our customer? Or are we stocking inventory, which is historically way above our normal levels, to supply our customers? But when things level back off, are those customers going to stick with us? These are the kind of questions you're getting. Okay, well, we roll through that and we keep on going. And then what happens, right? There's too much money in the system. Interest rates skyrocket. They go up. And so, okay, what happens? You get higher interest rates. If it's an inverse relationship that equates to typically lower valuations. So people are like, okay, valuations are coming back to historical norms, by the way. It's not like, last in 19 and 20 were like normal valuations. They were extraordinary great years. And we're coming back to like a level playing field. You get through interest rates, and then we get into election cycle, a tax policy. People are afraid that under the prior administrations that, the capital gains are going through the roof. So that the business owners kind of, rightfully so we need to kind of see what happens here, because I want to try to keep as much as I can. And so the election cycle, let's wait until after the election. Let's see what happens. And so we have election cycles. Here we got COVID, supply chain, interest rates, election. Okay, we got through that into the year. Next thing, everybody's excited. Tariffs. Out of the blue. I mean, we have clients affected by tariffs. We had to pull back on a couple of deals because of tariffs. We had to reorganize, rethink our marketing process. Let's see how they affect our client. Our client needed to see how it affects them from a profitability standpoint, because what do buyers ask? Hey, how are tariffs affecting your business? There we go. COVID, supply chain, interest rates, election, tariffs. Finally, that looks like, okay, we're tariffs have kind of like, all right, we can deal with it. We'll figure it all out. We'll move forward. And then we come into this year and boom, war, crisis in the Middle East, oil prices going through the roof right now. And the end, we don't have an end game. But because that, again, here we are with like 5 years of something outside of your control that affects your valuation, your ability to sell your company, and getting what you've worked so hard for all these years, and you're looking for, it's time for your payday. The one thing no one talks about during this whole time frame, and this is like what we're talking 5-6 years now, is time. And we're at the point now where time is as the essence for a lot of people. Because you were thinking about selling your company 5 years ago and you pulled back because all this stuff, every time you're ready, something else happens outside your control. You're now 66, you're now 67, you're now 68, you're now 69, you're now 70. And you want to enjoy what you work so hard for. And so now you're at a point where it's like, I need to do something. I need to prepare myself because it's going to take 9 months to a year to sell my company. It's highly likely you're going to need to stay on for 6 months, a year, maybe even 2 years post-closing. So if you're 68 today, you're 69 when you sell, and now you're 70, 71 by the time you leave, it's a window that continues to shrink. So as you're out there as a business owner, you need to do something. So it's important, even though there's some uncertainty now, there's still tremendous amount of cash sitting on the sidelines. My latest account, based on reports I've seen, was in excess of $2 trillion of dry powder. You have an urgency. It's time to sell. The buyers have an urgency. They need to put that money to work. So that is a positive. So if the waiting game is, in my opinion, is you can't wait any longer. You need to really push yourself to make a decision, go to market. And the best way to do that is to test a market. Because 95% of the buyers are not going to do anything because their risk tolerance, given what's going on geopolitically, is going to put them to the sidelines. But there's that 5%, 10% buyers that they'll make it work out. They'll figure out a deal. So you test a market with a banker like Osage. You go to a wide market, you come in with several bids, and then you can make an informed decision. You'll see what the value is. And then at the end of the day, you don't have to say yes. But at least you know where you stand in the current market. And I think it's important where we are from maybe I'm mostly talking to the baby boomer generation, which I'm one of, is that it's time to really move forward with what you've been thinking about for the last 5 years. Again, I'm kdee, President of Osage Advisors. Thank you for being with us today for this week's Big Hurdle. If you enjoyed it, please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Ins and Outs of Selling a Business, and have a great day.